So you've thought about moving to the San Francisco Bay Area, but you're still in the process of making up your mind? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you some of the drawbacks of living in the area. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Thriving in the San Francisco East Bay channel. I'm Rich Fleming, your local realtor, and I'm here to teach you everything you need to know about living, working, playing, sleeping, eating. You know the drill in Oakland and the rest of the San Francisco East Bay. I do these videos because I get a ton of people who reach out to me with questions about what it's like to live here, how to transition here, what they need to know before they get here, and I absolutely love it. So if you've got questions, you know what to do. Drop me a text, send me an email, give me a call, because when it comes to helping you transition to Oakland and the rest of the San Francisco East Bay, I got your back. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the drawbacks of living in California and specifically the San Francisco East Bay. So the San Francisco Bay Area is a spectacular place. I love this place. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know the passion and energy I have for the San Francisco area. But like any place, it does have its drawbacks, and you need to know those drawbacks before you make your decision to move here. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 8 reasons you may not want to move here. So let's just jump right into it. So reason 1, taxes. Now you hear a lot in the news about how high taxes are in California and that Elon Musk relocated out of California because of taxes and other reasons. And you keep hearing this in the news, and we need to talk about that. So we're going to talk about 3 primary types of taxes. 1, property taxes. 2, gasoline taxes. And 3, income taxes. So property taxes are very low in California in comparison to many other parts of the country. And part of this is due to a citizens' initiative about 40 years ago called Proposition 13, which really limited how quickly the property tax rates could be increased on homes. And there have been some shifts over the years, but fundamentally, California has extremely low property tax rates. So in the Bay Area, you're going to be looking at a property tax rate generally in about the 1.25% of the assessed value. Whatever the county says the property is worth, you're going to pay about 1.25%. You will find this is to be much lower than many other places. As I mentioned, some states are at 4 or 5% of the assessed value. So that is actually a strong benefit of being in California. Now, the second type of tax we're going to talk about is gasoline taxes. And here, you're going to take a serious hit being in California. So California has the highest state gasoline taxes in the country. So you're going to pay about 66, 67 cents per gallon for just taxes in California. And if you drive a lot, that can be onerous. If you actually have an electric vehicle, you are not paying those taxes right now. However, please be aware that the state is considering moving to a miles driven tax-based system as opposed to a gasoline tax-based system. And this is for a number of reasons. 1, to make sure you don't have quote-unquote free riders, people who have electric vehicles who don't pay taxes to help maintain the roads. There are just a whole bunch of reasons they're considering moving to this. So keep that in mind about our gasoline taxes. The third type of tax we're going to talk about is income taxes. And this is where California gets hit all the time in the media about how high our tax rates are. And if you look on paper, the tax rates do seem very high. Those are known as nominal tax rates. But once you start taking out deductions and exceptions and all the rest of that, the average California probably pays about 2% or less in income taxes. Now, the individuals in California who do pay the lion's share of income taxes are the very high earners. Thus, you see why Elon Musk left the state. So if you earn as a family probably over about $300,000 to $400,000 in a year, then you start to get in significantly higher tax brackets. But for the average family, income taxes in the state of California aren't as bad as they are often portrayed. And Kiplinger.com actually verifies this. So take a look at the map and take a look at the linked article in the description below. So a second reason you may not want to move to the Bay Area: earthquakes. Now, the last major earthquake in the area was the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, I believe it was, and that had a lot of significant impacts on the area. It collapsed part of the Bay Bridge, freeways collapsed, homes burned and were destroyed, numerous deaths. It is a significant challenge that we do face here in the Bay Area. Now, the good thing is that we don't have earthquakes very frequently at all. So as I said, the last major earthquake was in 1989, so that was over 30 years ago. Now, the drawback is, according to the U.S. Geological Service, USGS I believe it is, we are overdue for an earthquake on another earthquake fault in the area called the Hayward Fault. The last major earthquake on this fault was in 1868, and according to the Geological Service, we are statistically overdue for another earthquake. And our chances of having a 6.7 magnitude earthquake in the next 30 years is about 14.4%. So it is far from nil, but it isn't like it is a guaranteed thing over the next 30 years. The other thing to understand and keep in perspective about earthquakes is they are extremely infrequent. Now, when they do happen, especially if they're a significant magnitude, it could be a major challenge. The last earthquake, as I mentioned, on the Hayward Fault was 1868. There were probably less than 1,000 people living in this general area at that time. Now there are over 2.5 million, so it will be a significant event. However, you also have to consider just about every other region in the country has its own forms of natural disasters. Many of them are annual, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding. Every region has these. So for many Californians, we kind of look at it, hey, we have an earthquake every 30, 40, 50 years, and we don't have a lot of annual natural disasters in most of the urban areas. Now, a third reason you may not want to move to California is its challenge with homelessness. So as you often hear in the news, California definitely has a challenge with homelessness. According to some studies, California is home to over 1 out of every 4 homeless individuals and families in the entire country. And there are a number of reasons for this, everything to do with weather and climate, to housing prices. There are just a number of factors. I am not going to spend a lot of time on this video talking about homelessness because I actually recently just did an entire video on this subject. But you also have to understand that what you hear on the news kind of blows the scale of the problem out of proportion. And I'm not saying it isn't a big problem. It is a challenge, especially in many of the urban areas, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, Fresno. It is a problem, as homelessness is in many major cities. But you also have to understand that there are 40 million people approximately in California. And it is estimated the homeless challenge is about 150 to 160,000 people. So it is not prevalent as you might see on the news, like every neighborhood is just overrun with the homeless. That is far from the truth. It is a significant challenge and it does need to be addressed. But if that is something that is of great concern to you, then you may not want to move to California, especially if you're looking at some of the urban areas. So a fourth reason you may not want to move to California is its education system. So the state of California ranks at about 19th in the per pupil spending for education, and the quality of education can vary significantly across the state from school district to school district, and sometimes significantly within school districts. So it can be a challenge and is something you have to pay attention to. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you know to pay attention to school districts within a city. It is not uncommon for a city to have multiple school districts serving it. So you have to pay attention to what part of the city you're in if you want your child to attend a specific school district. So when it comes to higher education, California has three levels of colleges. One is the junior college. The second is the Cal State University system, which there are, I believe, 23 or 24 campuses. And then there is the University of California system, which has 10 campuses. Now, to give you an idea about the scope of the challenge related to higher education, in 1980, the population of California was about 23.5 million people. And now in 2020, it is about 39.5 million people. So that is a 67% increase in the population over the last 40 years. And in that 40-year span, the state has opened up 4 Cal State University campuses and 1 University of California campus. But in that same period of time, the state has opened up 35 prisons. So the population for prisons has grown much faster than the population for colleges. This is a constant challenge here in California, and quite honestly, a solution to being able to get easier access to universities in California doesn't seem like it's going to be resolved in the near future. But the campuses themselves, the systems themselves are trying to accommodate more people in the existing schools, but we'll have to see how that works out. So a fifth reason you may not want to move to California, it's politics. Now, California is heavily dominated by the Democratic Party and more so the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So if you are a conservative or a member of the Republican Party, you may get frustrated by California politics. All of the major cities, except for maybe San Diego, I'm not sure, but pretty much most of the major cities are also controlled by the Democratic Party. If you look at the makeup of the state legislature, both the Assembly and the Senate, about 75% of the seats are held by Democrats. So the GOP, the Republican Party, really has no influence over laws being passed. All of these state offices in California are also controlled by Democrats. So once again, if you're a member of the Republican Party or you're a conservative, this state may drive you a little bit batty. A sixth reason not to move to California or the Bay Area, well, it's climate change. Now, not getting into the causes and all the rest of that, there have been and continue to be changes to our environment caused by climate change. And a number of these factors are playing out regularly in the media. There is an increased chance of wildfire in many suburban/rural areas where suburban meets the rural boundaries. It has become much more common to have wildfires. This state is experiencing a significant and prolonged drought. 2/3 of the state is in what is considered to be a severe drought, and 1.5% of the state is in what is considered to be an extreme drought category. Added to this, you have factors such as flooding being more common when we do get rain because it is much harder for the ground to absorb the water because it gets baked and extremely hot, runs off, and causes flooding. And we are actually experiencing the San Francisco Bay rising. Now, this can be a significant problem in the future because many homes line the bay within 1 to 5 miles. Well, as the bay rises, this becomes a bigger and bigger challenge for more and more homes. A seventh reason not to move to the Bay Area, well, it's the traffic and congestion. Now, if you look at a map of the Bay Area, you will realize that it is composed of 9 counties, and it is a huge region, but most of the people live in a very small percentage of the space of those 9 counties. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. I actually did a video on that, so I will put that in the description. But you will find that most of the people are in a very small area, and this causes significant traffic, significant congestion, and the fact that San Francisco and many of the cities in the peninsula, to be able to access those cities, you have to cross a bridge at some point. And that creates bottlenecks as far as traffic. Now, if you look at many studies, you'll find that California has a lot of the most congested freeways in the country. Now, Los Angeles tends to have the lion's share of these congested freeways, but the Bay Area has a couple of bare freeways and interchanges in its area. So don't expect easy driving in the Bay Area if that's very important to you. Now, one factor of traffic and congestion, which is often overlooked, is given the number of people who drive and live here in California, its freeways are actually relatively safe. If you look at the deaths per 1,000 miles driven, you will find that many of the deadliest freeways are actually in the state of Florida. So I believe in the top 10, Florida has 6 of the deadliest freeways as a per capita or per miles rate driven measurement, while California only has 1 of the top 10. So it is crowded here, but our freeways, for whatever reason, tend to be a little bit safer. The 8th reason you may not want to move to the Bay Area or California as a whole, you knew it had to be on the list, and that's the cost of housing. As you are probably aware, California has the highest cost of housing in the country, and San Francisco has the second highest cost of housing after Manhattan and New York City. And as a region, the Bay Area's cost of housing is by far the highest in the country. It is a significant challenge. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking on this. I actually have a number of videos that cover aspects of some of the housing challenges in the Bay Area, but just be prepared for a different type of housing market than you may have experienced in many other parts of the country. The other thing to understand about our housing challenge here is that that challenge actually drives some of the challenges that the state faces in other areas, such as traffic, congestion, as people have to move further and further out to be able to afford housing and drive to work or other events closer into Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose. Wear and tear on our freeways. Once again, when people have to move further out, they drive more, puts more challenges on our infrastructure. Homelessness. With such a high cost of housing, it doesn't take much of a financial hit for many people to find themselves in a homeless situation. So as you can see, housing is a driving factor that the state really has to address to be able to solve some of its other challenges. The good thing is that the state has started to take steps to make it easier to construct housing, to put fewer restrictions on localities to prevent housing from being built, but there's still a long way to go. So that was the 8 reasons you may not want to move to the Bay Area or California as a whole. But you have to take everything in perspective, right? Every place has its challenges. There is no place in the world that is a utopia, that is perfect. So just take it with a grain of salt and make a decision that's fully informed. Now, if you want to know how California compares in some of these factors to a state such as Texas, well, I did a video recently about this, so check it out. If you got questions about anything in this video or just questions in general, drop me a text, give me a call, send me an email, because that is why I'm here, to help you make your transition to the San Francisco East Bay. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button so YouTube knows to show it to people with interests similar to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so you know each and every time I drop a new video, and I'll catch you in the next video.